And welcome back. Let's turn now to a segment we like to call Poll Positions.
Yeah, we take a look at the polls and shifting trends on a host of hot button issues. And first, when it comes to boots on the ground in Iraq, take a look at this Rasmussen poll. 35% currently say we should send troops back to Iraq 2 months ago. 40% support on that same issue. 52% support in early February. So what does that tell you right there, Miranda?
Wow, definitely changing views quickly. You want to move on to our next one. Let's take a closer look at gay marriage, if we could. There's no doubt about it. Of course, this issue is becoming more widely accepted here in the U.S. Now we have 37 states that allow same-sex marriage, but it appears many of us seem to actually overestimate how many people are actually gay here in the U.S. According to Gallup, the American public estimates nearly a quarter of all Americans are gay or lesbian, but actually it's just under 4%.
Now that is pretty interesting.
Did that surprise you?
It surprises me, and it also goes to show you how this issue is being covered so much by the media. I think oftentimes it is being talked about as a civil rights issue, which obviously affects more people than just a transgender, gay, lesbian, bisexual issue. So when you look at this, how much influence the dominant media coverage has on the American population, they tend to think that this affects 1 out of every 4 Americans, and maybe it does on a family level, but very big difference in the number of actual gay and lesbian Americans compared to what people think.
Well, I think the media has that effect overall on anything. I mean, when they see one plane crash, everyone acts like, oh, I'm scared to go on the plane, and you have to remind people that you're more likely to get in an accident. What is it, a mile and a half from work or home or whatever?
Statistically, far more dangerous to drive in a car.
We cover the unusual, and sometimes we need to take more time, like we're trying to do now, and put things in perspective.
But really, just 4%,
just
compared
4%.
to a quarter of all Americans, which is the
and now Ireland joining the ranks of countries that now allow same-sex marriage. This is the first country, though, to do it by public vote. 20 countries, I believe, now around the world
so
allow
that
same-sex
legalizes same-sex marriage in Ireland. They had civil unions as legal before. It'll be interesting to see how much actually changes.
I think it's going to change pretty rapidly.
Or is it more of a symbolic gesture to the world about where Ireland stands and where this issue is on a global level? All right. Talking about social ideology, let's move on. The left apparently is catching up to the right in this topic. 31% of Americans now describe their views on social issues as generally liberal. That number matches the percentage who identify as generally conservative. This is the first time in Gallup's polling history on this question that the two parties are tied. What do you think that says to you now? Do you think actually, as we see those lines hit the same spot, I actually think this shows us that more Americans are divided on social issues?
I wonder, too, though, if people really know what they mean by saying liberal or conservative. How is that defined?
That's a good question. That's a good follow-up question on that poll. But I
mean, do they know it's social issues, or do they think it's economic issues?
But when you look at this, and you often hear this so many times when you hear from pollsters that we live in a center-right country, this seems to maybe argue that it's just as much center-left as it is center-right. And how do you think that'll affect the candidates in 2016?
I think generally most people are in the gray. I really do. I don't think it's a black or white issue. I think most of the time we will meet in the middle. We may be liberal on some issues, conservative on some issues, but I think we're mostly in the middle.
I
don't think it's so clear cut.
When you look at elections, normally the economics of the day tend to decide most presidential elections, and you also have foreign policy issues which can be very decisive as well in these types of things, and also the social issues. We see the Supreme Court dealing with gay marriage coming up. I wonder, considering that is the most dominant social issue of our time, if the Supreme Court does weigh in and decide one way or on the other, where will social issues actually stack up in terms of importance for undecided voters in this election?
Well, it's always difficult because I think more people are concerned right now about ISIS and the economy.
Yeah. I think, with the dominance of ISIS, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, what they've been able to do recently with capturing Ramadi, the very real concern about lone wolf attacks here on our shores. This could be a very unique election as we're trying to wind down these wars. We hear the president talking about this in Iraq and Afghanistan, a new era in this war against terror cropping back up. All right, we do want to check in. As we told you, we're going to check in on some events taking place throughout the day. Observing Memorial Day. This is actually Seaside Heights in New Jersey. We mentioned Jason talking earlier about the importance of taking a few moments to enjoy the day and remember this is why so many men and women sacrifice their lives for us, so that you can
Have that
spend part of the
barbecue.
day
Right.
barbecuing, having a cold beer, spending time with your family and friends, but also don't forget, make sure you take that moment of silence at some point today, whether it's 3 p.m., whether it was noon earlier today, to reflect and remember what this day is actually about.
What are you going to do today?
I am going to go to a barbecue with some friends later today,
Oh,
including
that would be nice.
a friend of mine who served in Afghanistan, and give him a big hug. And you know, he's remembering a lot of his buddies that he lost.
Right.
You know.
I think I'm going to take this moment and remember my grandmother who worked for the Navy, my grandfather who was in the Navy, and my uncle who was in the Army. So, and my friend who is married to an Army Ranger. So I'm thinking about all those people right now.
Thoughts are with